Welcome, everybody. We have relatively new members of the International Board for Certification of Group Psychotherapists here with us today. And we thought we would do an interview just about what brought you to the board and what you've seen since you've been here, and then a little bit about the CGP. So welcome, everybody. I'm Tony Sheppard. I'm the current chair of the International Board for Certification of Group Psychotherapists, and I'll let everybody else introduce themselves.
My name's Gary Burlingame. I am the president-elect of AGPA and have worked at training group therapists now for a long time at Brigham Young University, where I'm associated with the clinical psychology PhD program.
Welcome, Gary.
I'm Dr. Noelle LaForge. I'm a new member for the IBCGP. My background and work experience is somewhat similar to Gary's, although not nearly as extensive. I'm currently at the University of Denver in the Graduate School of Professional Psychology, and so I do a lot with training, particularly in group therapy.
Thanks, Noelle.
I guess I'll jump in next. My name is Dr. David Sanko, a relatively new member to the IBCGP, and I'm coming from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in which I'm a private practice psychologist, but also an assistant professor and core faculty at the Wisconsin School of Professional Psychology.
Thanks, David.
I'm Claudia Arlo. I'm a psychotherapist in New York City. I'm on faculty at the Eastern Group Psychotherapy Society's Group Psychotherapy Training Program. I'm an adjunct professor at Fordham University in the Graduate School of Social Services. And I have a private practice and work in a large mental health system hospital base here in the city, conducting groups and training grad students for many, many years in group psychotherapy. So I'm very happy to be a recent addition to the International Board of CGPs.
Thanks, Claudia.
Hi, I'm Michael Frank. I'm in Los Angeles. I have a private practice in which I have a couple of groups, and I'm also the coordinator of the group therapy program at the Maple Counseling Center, which is a low-fee community counseling center where I train interns and we run a bunch of groups. And I'm also on our faculty for the Principles of Group Psychotherapy course for the Group Psychotherapy Association of Los Angeles.
Thanks, Michael.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to get to our first question here that I'd like to hear each of you comment on, is what made you decide to get involved with the work of IBCGP?
Well, I can keep the order, I guess, since I started. I mean, the quick answer, Tony, is this is an assignment for the president-elect. But the other piece to that for me is I've been training group therapists for decades. And this wonderful project that Noelle is involved in and others at AGPA with the specialty recognition of group by the American Psychological Association, something that I've had my fingers in for a long time. And really, AGPA is the premier training organization for group therapists outside of universities. And, you know, it was one of the president-elect assignments I really looked forward to because of that. I love what the certification board is trying to do, and looked forward to being a member of it. So There's my quick answer.
Glad to have you, Gary, even though it's an assignment. We're very glad to have you.
That's a good launching point because our interests align, and I do a lot of work with group as a specialty. But just to put a few words to what motivates that, I think the evidence is very clear that group therapy works. It works well, it's efficient. I mean, I'm very interested in tackling the mental health crisis that we face globally, really. But the risk of doing group is that it can be more harmful than other modalities when done wrong. And so I think my investment in IBCGP is really about ensuring quality so that we can realize, the dream of helping as many people with quality treatment as possible.
It just reminds me, Noelle, as you're saying that we really set the standard. We hold the standard for training in group psychotherapy, and I'm glad you're pointing that out. Very important.
Yeah, and that's actually what I was going to piggyback off of, is that my interest is that I want to be a part of helping set that standard. As a group practitioner, I've seen groups being run poorly, absolutely terrible. And then they'll ask me like, well, what's wrong with the way that I'm running groups? Like, well, it doesn't meet the standard. And now I have a little bit of the clouds, like, because these are the standards, right? These are the standards for training. And I also want to be a part of being able to see that develop. So it's having it be a piece of, okay, if you're recognizing this, let me also now help you get connected to meet these standards for training, for certification, to then hopefully have your groups run a little bit smoother.
Sure, absolutely.
And just to add, one of the things that, I've been training people for over 2 decades in group psychotherapy, and they sometimes, they get caught by surprise. They're doing an internship, an externship, and they come with little information about what group work is about, and what group work can do with patients in terms of effectiveness and also the speed of recovery, and I think it's important to me to be able to give people some kind of certification that would set them apart from those who have not had formal training or education in group psychotherapy. Who sometimes get thrown into running groups. I co-chair the Mental Health Agency and Institutional Settings Special Interest Group for AGPA, and there is an issue about who gets trained, and I think that providing a CGP gives people a credential that will make them stand up and stand out from other folks who have not had this kind of training and community. But that's the other piece. We also offer a community of peer support and peer training and supervision and consultation and continuing education for those with CGPs, which I think it's very, very important, and it's become my professional home, as it is for most of us here, all of us in this room today.
Well, personally, I was asked to be on the board, and I really appreciated the invitation, especially to be on the standards committee, because I've also been teaching and training group therapists for a long time. And the idea of having some training that you can actually demonstrate is so important, rather than so often people are just given groups and agencies and things. So for the opportunity for them to know what they're doing, is really important. And so being on the standards committee for me has been great, because then I get to have some input and some influence into just what the standards will be as they evolve.
Mm-hmm. I've heard a couple of, at least 3 sort of themes as people answered that first question. One, recognition of what we do and setting it apart. terms of the specialty recognitions that we've been able to achieve. And then the standards, obviously setting the standards for training in group psychotherapy, and then the training itself. I've been putting together a workshop on group psychotherapy and have been doing a deep dive into the principles manual, and just being reminded of how important that is, how important that manual is, and how important getting training is. And I like that we're talking about that today. Moving us along, you know, we do offer a certification, as several of you have pointed out, that does set people apart, that does really say that you have that additional training and that additional experience and that additional supervision or consultation. On a more personal level, what has holding the CGP meant for each of you?
I'm going to disrupt the order. I'm going to jump right in on that.
All right.
I didn't realize it at first, what the kind of the impact of having the CGP credential is going to be until I joined the faculty at my academic institution. And immediately they asked, you know, tell me what are those letters that you put, the CGP? I said, it's Certified Group Psychotherapist. And immediately they said, oh, cool, you can be our group guru, right? Like that was just the emphasis, like, oh, you know, group. Because apparently in the past that there wasn't as many people who knew group or did a lot of group, did group well. Like they had other people that could teach group, but didn't necessarily like live and breathe group. And so I'd say that's what the credential kind of really represents, is that I am now a resource for, you know, faculty members and even affiliate faculty who are running groups. Say, hey, can I consult you with what's happening in my group? I'd love to hear your take on it. And so I'm kind of that point person for groups now.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
For me, it's about identification. You know, I don't know how or if the CGP has attracted clients or things like that, but it's about my own sense of who I am as a practitioner. I am a group psychotherapist, and I'm committed to ongoing training every year to continue to advance my skills and to learn more. And that just gives me an added sense of who I am in this work.
Yeah, I think, sorry, do you want to go ahead, Gary?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so, you know, some of this is my own story. My background's in psychology. I'm a psychologist. And all through my graduate training program, I did not have any training in group. I didn't have a course in group. I didn't have practicum in group. And then when I went out on internship for full-time practice, my first day of internship, they looked at me and they said, you've got 3 groups to run today.
Yep.
And I hear this story or something similar to it pretty frequently. Luckily, I had a great internship, and I did my postdoc at Menninger Clinic, where we all got trained in, you know, the principles, and I had really good group training at that point. So having the CGP is about committing to that. And now that I'm involved with training, it's been part of my mission to make sure that we really change that trajectory, that trainees are getting that training much sooner. And you know, it'd be hypocritical to be guiding them in that direction without holding credentials myself that shows that I am specialized and an expert in this area.
So I have the opposite story of Noel and David. I went to a PhD program in psychology that had a group emphasis. And did an internship in a counseling center that had a strong group emphasis. Then came to BYU almost 40 years ago because of the strong group emphasis, both in the academic program as well as the counseling center. So I didn't do the CGP until I realized how poorly and here's David's experience, how poorly groups could be offered. And I was asked to come in as a group consultant because there was this large hospital system that was about ready to lose its funding we're talking tens of millions of dollars because their groups were so crummy. They asked me to come in and fix it. And I connected the practitioners of this hospital to AGPA to get trained in groups, and thought it's time to sort of acknowledge that. And that's when I signed up, Tony, for the certified group psychotherapist, even though I'd had pretty outstanding training. But it was a sort of send a message that, I had to kind of a privileged academic and internship experience, and then realized how bad it could be in the practice sector, like David was talking about.
I always had, a love for groups. And my first postgraduate training was in group psychotherapy. And there I learned, it was the AGPS training program, and there I learned about the CGP, and I got mentored, and I also found, a professional community that was quite warm, that was, attractive intellectually and interpersonally. So it felt like a good fit. It felt like finding home. And as soon as I got everything, I submitted my application, and I've been connected to this work and promoting group work and for many years. And one of the things that I love about, group work is that, no matter what theoretical orientation you come from, or you move from one to the next, there is always going to be a group work component to it that keeps, the field growing, moving forward, and keeps making, this an attractive, way of working with folks. So just wanted to add that.
I was thinking as each of you was answering that question, that I was thinking about the concept of quality, and that for a lot of us, the journey into the CGP has been about offering quality services and feeling that we're doing right by our clients, our patients, and that we also, not only are we delivering quality services, but in doing that and in keeping our training current, it gives us confidence. I thought about my own, as I've stepped into different roles in group psychotherapy. I'm in private practice. I've done some teaching and training in group psychotherapy. And I actually look at my CGP certificate up there and say, hey, I know things about group. And I don't just know things that are 20 years old because I learned them in graduate school. I know current things in group, because I'm maintaining my CGP. Yeah. So I really appreciate all the different perspectives that we've had on that. I'm going to go back to the certification board for a minute and ask another question. What's impressed you the most about the work of the certification board?
Going off of quality, I would say the other piece about that is ensuring that quality can be maintained in an accessible way. I think Gary mentioned, he said like he had the privilege of training. And I think we all recognize that not everyone has had the privilege of training. And at the same time, recognizing that ongoing or getting access to training is a privilege. And I'd say with the most recent kind of resolutions and the kind of the organizations, we are creating a bit of accessibility and equity in how others are able to access some very, very high quality trainings in order to get the credential. And so then to have that quality training experience.
And from the other side, one of the things I'm really proud of, having been a member now of the Standards Committee, is that there's a bi-yearly, every 2 years, there's now 20 hours of continuing education specifically in group therapy required. to recertify each 2 years. And we've added a 3-hour diversity, equity, and inclusion requirement as part of that 20 hours that has to be specifically about group psychotherapy.
You know, to add to what you and David said, I love the mentorship aspect of the work on the board. There is a lot of mentoring and support to our, young professionals and graduates and other folks who decide later on in their career to start groups and to work with groups. And, and I love the way this board actually maintains, support, and mentors those with CGPs or those who want to get a certification. So there is a lot of holding of those holding a CGP and those also wanting to get that, who are trying to meet the requirements. So I love that aspect of the work of the board, to add to what was said already.
I think the things that have been said so far really align with the first thoughts that I had as I considered this question. I think as AGPA really evaluates itself and tries to move to be an anti-racist organization and committed truly to equity, inclusion, and belonging, I've been impressed with the CGP board's willingness to be reflective, to lower defensiveness, and really try to engage in some efforts to see where our own systematic barriers are in place and start to change that.
I think going last, I can say I echo all of those comments and really see group as an access opportunity. And point the listener back to a Wall Street Journal article that was done in the 2008 recession, when mental health services were being cut all over the United States. And this bright Wall Street Journal writer asks a question on the front page of the Wall Street Journal: why aren't people using more group treatment? Because the very people who needed the treatment the most were having their treatment removed from them because state governments were in trouble, and made many of the arguments that you've heard Noel, David, and others on this interview. And I love that that access piece is front and center in the board, Tony.
Well, I was going to say, Gary, that's a good lead in to what I wanted to say in response to that, is that it makes me very happy to hear that a lot of what people are impressed with about the board is accessibility and addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion concerns. And David, I just wanted to follow up on what you said, and I think that what you were referring to was our passing the ability to obtain this up to the full 75 hours of consultation supervision for the CGP through an educational event, which in some cases would make that free, would take the cost of that supervision from thousands of dollars to making it at no cost if it's offered through a special interest group or an affiliate society or something like that. And I think, in increasing opportunities for mentorship and for not only for mentorship toward the CGP, as Claudia pointed out, but it makes me very happy as the board chair to hear that is what impresses people, because it's such a part of our mission. And also, as Michael pointed out, adding the diversity, equity, and inclusion CE requirement is a first step in the right direction of recognizing that we not only need to know how to do group, but we need to know how to do group with traditionally marginalized individuals and groups of people.
I just want to add, Tony, to the question about my involvement with the board, is that my standard for doing this kind of volunteer work is it good work with good people. And this board certainly meets that standard for me.
Oh, wonderful to hear. I've thought that throughout my entire involvement with the board, that it's good work with good people. I really like that. That should become our tagline, right? Part of our logo. Well, I have another question to throw out that I'd like to hear answers to. Obviously, the certification board is one of our missions is to promote the CGP. And I think we've already said a lot of good things about becoming a CGP. What would your message be to someone who's considering becoming a CGP, or maybe doing that calculus about do I commit to this? How would this impact me if I did choose to become a CGP? What would you tell that person?
I'd go back to identification. That it's a way of saying to yourself and to others that this is an important part of who I am as a professional, and kind of commits one to that.
I'm thinking about, twofold, what's in it for me and what's in it for others. And, what's in it for me, it has to do with, a sense of belonging to a professional community that I feel it's, intellectually, excellent and serious, and also a lot of fun. Let me add. And in terms of, what's in it for others, I think there is a need for group therapy coordinators in large agencies and institutional settings all across the country. We recently, had a survey done about utilization of groups in large mental health systems, and most group services in the country are provided in these large mental health and institutional settings, VA systems, et cetera, and we need people who are willing to step up to become a CGP, to become the group coordinators. What happened to David can happen to somebody else. And we need people to do that work to foster access and equity in the quality of treatment for those folks who may be underserved under different circumstances in terms of staff training and supervision.
I tend to be somewhat of a pragmatist. So my first thought goes to kind of the nuts and bolts of like, how do you become a CGP? And we are working on making that process even more navigatable, but I would say, I guess my first thing is that it's very doable. A lot of folks actually have a lot of the requirements in place and just need to kind of reflect on how to put all those pieces together and get credit for what they've done. And so then my second point is that, we have mentoring in place to help people navigate that and have their questions answered and access, the additional training or experiences that they may need to get it. So I think that would be my number one recommendation or thing I would say is it's quite doable.
So I'm working on a project with Martin Whittingham right now, documenting the actual use of group treatment throughout the United States. And we don't have the exact numbers yet, but what I can tell you is that people are going to be surprised at the percentage of mental health hours that are delivered through group treatment. So what I would say to somebody is, just like you went out and got your MSW or your PhD or whatever degree you happen to have, to be able to deliver mental health treatment in a competent manner, the CGP sets a minimum standard for what you need to know to be able to deliver a treatment that is practiced far more than most people really understand. And I think once we start providing this data publicly, people are going to be rather surprised, Tony.
Yeah, I think so too. I just want to point out we've had several folks mention mentorship, and we do offer a mentoring program for people considering the CGP. So a little PR flash here, news flash. We offer that, and anybody interested in being assigned someone from our board, possibly one of us that are on this call today, would just need to contact the AGPA office and get assigned to somebody who, like Noel mentioned, you know, a lot of people might have those pieces in place, just a matter of putting them together into the application. And that mentor is, that's what that mentor is meant for, is to help you put those pieces in place. Also to help you strategize if there's a piece that you're having trouble obtaining, to help you strategize about how to do that, especially in light of some of the new initiatives that we have that make some of those things easier all the time.
Well, I will kind of be the anchor here and just really reflect on what many other people had stated, which, you know, what would I say to someone who's asking about if they should do it? And for me, it's about thinking about, well, if you're already asking the question, then there's already a desire to be there. For me, that's what it started out as. Like I was questioning myself, should I get my credential? And just the mere fact that I was asking about that, should I work towards it, was enough, was listening and reflecting on that, was responding to what I would say is a natural calling, right? Each of us in the mental health field, we're responding to a calling, and we had to then do the requirements in order to answer that calling. I view the CGP credential in that same way. I'm a group psychotherapist. I identify as a group psychotherapist, like Michael said. And in responding to that calling, this is then what I have to do, right? I am now responding to that question, that yearning, that desire to become a certified group psychotherapist.
I think that's, those are all of my questions. I really appreciate everybody's input and passion and work on the board. I think we've really identified some of the real strengths of what the certification board and the CGP bring to the AGPA community. So I really appreciate your time today, and